You know, when I talk to people and they ask me what I do, and I tell them that I'm a self-authority guide, they usually just look at me a little bit strange. They pause and then they might say something like, what does that actually mean? And I love that question because the fact that it's unfamiliar is kind of the whole point. And I'll tell you why. Because we live in this world that has taught us from the time we were very small to look outside of ourselves for answers. You know, we've been taught to look to our parents, our teachers, our doctors, our partners, our religion, even now to Google and to AI. And I started to notice something across the years of work that I've done, both in the corporate world and in the personal development space. And that is that almost every problem I was sitting with, in every person I worked with, had the same thing underneath it. They'd handed their authority over to someone or something outside of themselves. And the thing is, they'd done it so long ago and so completely that they didn't even know that they were doing it. Because we're taught to be reactive, not proactive about who we are. We're taught to, only respond, to react, to manage what's in front of us. It's that who screams loudest energy. And what happens when we work that way in that reactive space is we wonder why nothing really changes at the root level. And that's the gap a self-authority guide works in. And I want to be clear about something because I think it matters. I am a qualified counsellor and I have deep respect for therapy, for coaching, for all of those modalities that exist in the healing and personal development space. They all have their place and they all do very important work. But a self-authority guide is something that's a little bit different. We think of a standard therapist, they work primarily over the past. A coach works primarily towards a future goal. But what I found myself doing over and over again was working in the space in between, that present, working in that question of who are you right now? Who are you beneath all of the cultural conditioning, the family patterning, the endless stories and the roles that you've been playing? Because that is a very different conversation. And a self-authority guide works with you to help you find your way back to yourself. Not the version of you that was shaped by what everyone else needed you to be, and not the version that learned to stay small or stay quiet or keep the peace. This is the actual you, the one that existed before all of that crap got laid on top. Because self-authority isn't about being independent or closed off. It's about knowing yourself clearly enough that your connection to everything else, like your relationships, your sense of purpose, your connection to something greater than yourself becomes real in a way that it never was when you were just reacting. To put it simply, I help people understand themselves deeply enough to live from a place of self-authority. And that is what this work is for. And here's where it gets interesting because people say to me, but what do you actually do? And the way that I work is probably not what you'd expect. Because I've never met two people that are identical in every way. Sure, you may meet people that look the same, that might act similar, but they're never identical in every way. They've never had the same experiences, the same thought patterns, the same conditions of how they've been raised. And when I think about that logically, I ask myself, why would I try and help everyone with just one tool? Doesn't make sense to me. We're all different. And over the years, I've trained and worked in a wide range of modalities, counseling, coaching, energy healing, Reiki runes, tarot channeling, somatic approaches, the proactive needs and boundaries method, which is my own framework that we get into in other videos. And what guides which tools I use with any given person isn't a formula. It's a combination of two things I've developed over more than 20 years. The ability to see patterns in people quickly, and the intuition to know what to do with what I'm actually seeing with those patterns. And those two things together are what tells me where someone actually is and what's going to open something up for them. Because my job is to meet people in a space that resonates with who they are and not what I or anyone else thinks that they should be. And in practice, that might look like, a one-on-one session that starts with a conversation and moves into energy work. It might look like working through the proactive needs and boundaries method together, over a series of sessions. Or it might look like a reading that cracks something open that talking hasn't been able to reach. What it always looks like, though, is starting with the person in front of me. Not a method, not a process, not an agenda, just the person. And I want to tell you what I keep seeing in all of these sessions, because this is really at the heart of why this work matters so much to me. People keep coming to me looking for connection, whether that's connection to a partner, to a sense of purpose, to something greater than themselves, or just connection to another individual. And what I find almost every single time is they're trying to find that connection before they found that connection to self. Because the secret is you can't connect in a place of honesty and integrity outwardly until you've connected inward first. And that inward connection, that knowing of who you are, actually is what self-authority is built on. And one of my favorite quotes comes from the philosopher Aristotle. And he said that knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And what I've come to understand is that most of us are trying to skip that step. We want the wisdom without doing the knowing. But this work is all about the knowing who you are so you can show up authentic. And if any of this resonates with you, I'd love for you to explore what's available over at steppingintomeme.com.au. There's a range of ways to work together depending on where you're at and what you need. I also have a range of freebies and premium tools that you can explore. And if you're just not sure where to start, that's okay too. I've actually dedicated a page to the site specifically for that. So I hope that helps, guys. It gives you a bit of an understanding of what I do as a self-authority guide. So if you haven't subscribed, please jump on and do that. We have new videos every Wednesday, and I'm looking forward to chatting again then. Lots of love.